Okay, I'm starting the webinar now.
Recording in progress.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you all to the Tax Resolution Help Center. My name is May. I will be hosting today's session and introducing today's speaker. I will also be coordinating the Q&A chat session at the end of this session. And I want to congratulate all of you for taking steps to deal with your taxes. Taxes from all sources, including income tax, payroll tax, property tax, excise tax, and sales tax, represent a 35% to 60% reduction in your personal savings and wealth. As you probably know, those with 1% of wealth in this country have experts to help them pay a small percent of tax. Our goal is to help you reduce how much you pay in tax by educating and informing you on ways to reduce past, present, and future tax expenses. We think you are entitled to live a happier, healthier life by keeping more of what you earn and getting the taxman off your back. Our goal is to provide you good information with the opportunity to ask questions that are important to you. The presentation itself will last about 20 minutes, plus 20 to 30 minutes for you to ask questions by chat. I will select the questions and present them to today's expert. If you wish, you can include your first name and your state. That would be great. Other than that information, your identity is not mentioned. The information you are receiving in this session is not specific tax advice. If you want specific tax advice for your situation, you are free to contact today's expert or any of our tax experts at Tax Resolution Help Center. As you know, these group sessions are included in your do it yourself membership fee of $20 per month. If you are not yet a member, please sign up today. We need your financial support. And to better understand what might be on your mind during the session, I might include some polling questions to ask you. I will then finish with a 5-minute wrap up. Also, a survey will be sent looking for your feedback. And finally, this session will be recorded. And the topic for today's session is dealing with IRS and state tax notices and letters. And the tax expert for today's session is John Shantz. John has the unique perspective of being both a business advisor and business owner. His wide ranging experience can help business owners and employees get through everyone's least favorite topic, tax compliance, or the repercussions of non-compliance. With that said, introducing John Shantz.
Thank you, May, and thank you to everybody who's here today. We are going to talk about dealing with IRS letters, notices, and we'll talk about interest and penalties on those notices. Just a quick little bit about me. There's my contact information. If after this session you have additional questions or more clarification on the information we talk about, or don't get the answer you need in the chat, feel free to contact me. Be happy to talk to you about your situation and see if I can offer any additional feedback for you. My background, I spent a number of years in public accounting. Many years ago, I spent about 30 years running a home building real estate development company. Successfully retired from that and now I am back in working in tax and accounting areas and enjoy that quite a bit. When I'm not doing that, I'd rather be skiing. Hope you all have something you like to do as much as I like to get out and do some skiing. Today's topics, we'll talk about notice and letter basics, some interest and penalties and how they're computed, and touch on a few other issues as well. You may be familiar with the old adage, God forbid you ever catch on fire. The rule is stop, drop, and roll. It's a hard thing to do, I suppose, if you're actually caught on fire. First thing you want to do is probably run like crazy. But if you ever do, stop, drop, and roll. If you ever get a tax notice, I like to say stop, drop, and read. So if you're dealing with a notice right now, in a situation, I would ask you to just stop and take the time to really read that notice. Reading that notice is going to give you all the information you need to deal with it. One thing to keep in mind, if you do get a letter from the IRS, that thing shows up in your mailbox. It's kind of normal to be a little bit stressed out. It's typically not an audit. Usually there's asking for information. You might have missed something on your return. They're asking for additional money, but it doesn't mean someone's going to come knocking on your door and lock down your bank accounts and take you away. That's a pretty rare situation. Unless it says audit, it's not an audit. So, that notice comes, as I said, that notice comes in. A little nervous, a little stressed, a little worried. Oh my goodness, I did something wrong. I suspect that most of you, when you do your tax return, you're trying to do it right. You gather all your information, you put it together, you put it in your return. You're doing the best job you possibly can. Taxes are complicated. Even some simple returns can be complicated. People we deal with here, Tax Resolution Center, myself, I've been doing tax returns for myself and for other people for many, many, many years. So if you make a mistake, it's normal. You do it once a year. You don't know all the details. The tax software that's out there is really good, but even the software is not perfect. So you get nervous, stressed out. It's okay. It's normal. If you end up with a notice, hey, it's a chance to learn something, learn a little bit more, really dig into your tax return, see what's going on there a little bit, maybe learn a little bit more about how the taxes are computed. So you're going to get that notice, you're going to stop, drop, and read. You're going to pull out a copy of your tax return. Take a look at the tax return. See what's being asked for in the notice and how it compares to your return and how it fits in there. That's going to give you all the information you need to deal with that notice. A couple of things to keep in mind when you do get a notice. Keep the notice. Deal with it now. Tax notices don't get better with time. Interest and penalties don't go down over time. They only go up. So you're going to want to deal with it as soon as you possibly can. Don't put it in the drawer and wait until next week. Take a look at what type of notice you have. The notice, we'll look at one here in a minute, but at the top of the notice, it'll tell you what kind of letter or notice it is. If you can't figure it out from the notice itself, a lot of times the IRS website, they got pages on each different type of notice and how to deal with that notice. Take a look for the tax year, the date of the notice, the date to respond. We're going to dig into that more in a second here. Your next steps, once you've read the letter and understand what's being asked of you, if you agree with it, you go, yeah, I did forget that. It's right. Pay the tax the way they tell you to pay the tax, and you're done. What if you can't pay the tax? What if you can't pay the interest and penalties they're asking you for? Think about an installment plan. You can go to the IRS website, set up an online account if you don't have one, and you'll have the opportunity to set up an installment plan. There are some requirements you have to meet. For most people, it's pretty straightforward, and you should be able to meet it, but you do have that option to set up an installment plan. What if you disagree with the notice? Get your information together, read that notice, compare it to your return, find the information they're looking for. Sometimes the IRS does send out bad information or they make a mistake. You're going to want to compare what they're asking for with how you think things should be. And if they should be different, you can respond to that notice and argue your point. So let's take and we'll talk about that more in a minute. Let's take a look at an actual notice here. We'll see up here, this notice is a CP11. It tells you right up here. It tells you what tax year the notice applies to. It's going to have your name and information in there. The date of the notice is important to know, because somewhere down here it's going to tell you when you need to respond by. In this case, it's telling that the tax and interest and penalties are computed through October 26th. So if you don't pay by October 26th, they're going to tack on more interest charges here. A lot of notices give you 30 to 60 days to respond. So keep in mind that it's coming from this date here, and in this case, October 5th. There's usually a telephone number in the notice that you can call. If you need to request an extension of time to deal with it, you can do that. So, this is kind of the payment stub telling you what you have to pay, what you need to do, and how you can pay with things. So what you need to do if you agree, what you need to do if you disagree. Here's your payment options. Payment options continued. And in this notice, it tells you what changes they made to the return in this section. Every type of notice does a little bit different, but that's kind of the meat of it. You're like, what did I do? Go find this section or read the letter and says, these are the changes we made, or here's what we're looking for. That's kind of the meat of the notice. Is going to give you the information you need to figure out whether the IRS could be on the right track or the wrong track. And then over here on this last page is the interest charges and how they computed the interest charges. Some additional information, some publications they might give you that you can look at, phone numbers to call. So that's a kind of a quick run through of what an actual notice looks like. But all the information you're going to need to deal with that notice is going to be in that letter. Let's talk about interest a little bit. The current interest rate the IRS charges is 7%. That changes on a quarterly basis. So right now, 7% is kind of a real number. Rates have gone up in the last year or so. Used to be kind of low. I would expect them to stay up there for a little bit longer. So again, if we're talking about any real tax liability here, it behooves you to deal with that notice sooner or later, because those interest charges can rack up. Typically, the IRS isn't going to abate interest charges or remove interest charges. Penalties is another story. We'll get to there in a minute. So get it taken care of so you're not racking up interest charges. IRS does charge interest on the underpayment of taxes. So to the extent you owe money, they're going to compute the interest from the time you owed the tax to the time you paid it. Penalties. The IRS charges a number of different penalties. And for different reasons. There's a failure to file your tax return on time. Failure to file your tax return on time penalty. That's 5% a month, up to a maximum of 25%. So that can add up pretty quick. There's also failure to pay any tax you owe on time. That's 5% a month, up to 25%. Those two can run together. So if you didn't pay your tax on time and you didn't file your return on time, 5% a month each. So that's 10% a month. You can rack up some money there in penalties. So that's another reason you want to deal with these notices when you get them. There's a failure to prepare an accurate return, so an accuracy related penalty that can get up to 20% on the amount of the tax liability due to the inaccurate computation of tax. Don't see that one quite as much. So if you get into complicated areas of a return and situations, you might want to have a professional be doing your tax return as opposed to you. But keep that in mind. There's also a penalty for failure to provide accurate information returns. And information returns, typically W-2s, 1099s. If you run a small business, you could have W-2s, you could have 1099s, you could have payroll, sales tax. You have a lot of reporting requirements there. Don't let those things slip by. If you're having trouble dealing with that, think about outsourcing some of that part of the process to somebody else and let them take care of that liability for getting those types of returns filed. Because those penalties for failing to file those returns can add up pretty quick and be substantial. And then another thing is, if you get a notice from the IRS, don't forget there could be state implications to that notice. So if you owe the IRS money, you might very well owe your state money. So a quick summary here is that, like I said at the beginning, stop, drop, and read. Stop what you're doing. Read that notice. If you again, if you got a notice right now, have you stopped it and read it and really tried to understand what's going on there? The best way, we all try, again, everybody's trying to do things right when you're doing your tax return. The best way to avoid notices, take the time doing your return. Take a few
Recording
minutes,
stopped.
compare your return to what you've done in prior years.
Recording in progress.
Make sure it looks good. Take a few extra minutes when you do your return and make sure you included that other W-2 that maybe is missing. You're better off just waiting that extra week or two to make sure you have all your tax forms that you need to put into your return and get them into your return rather than just getting it done and filing it fast so you can get your refund. Take your time, get the return done right. IRS is going to charge interest on any underpayment. They can charge penalties on the underpayments. A lot of times you can get penalties abated. It's always worth asking. If you get a notice, you respond to the notice, say, hey, I owe the money, but can we do something about the penalties? I respectfully request that the penalties be abated. I've been good in the past. This is the first time I've ever got a notice. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. Ask for an abatement. A lot of times they do it. Always file a return on time, even if you can't pay the tax. Number one way, maybe the number two biggest things, make sure you get all the information on your return, file your return on time. If you can't file your return on time, file an extension. An extension gives you an extension for the filing of your return. It doesn't extend the time for you to pay your tax. So when you file an extension, you should pay the tax at that point in time. Again, if you can't do that, you're going to set up an installment plan. If you're running into habitual notices, habitual substantial balances due that you haven't been able to pay, it might be time to seek some professional help and find out what's going on, and see where you can make some changes to try to improve things in your process. So that's a quick summary of notices and the interest and penalties that can come along with them. Again, if you have additional questions after this session and need additional information, there's my contact information. Otherwise, if you got any questions, let's talk about it.
All right, thank you very much for that, John. And I apologize earlier, I accidentally clicked the button. But anyway,
Okay.
thank you. Anyway, we do have a question here. This is from our audience from the Facebook Live. And his question is, does the 7% penalty apply to business owners and individual employees?
The 7% interest is going to apply to the taxpayer that's being hit with the tax. So if the business owes $5,000 in unpaid taxes, it's not going to go to the employees of the business. It's going to go to the business. Now, when you get into employment taxes, so if you own a business and you haven't paid your employment taxes, like the Social Security, um, you might have withheld from your employees' wages, those can attach to you personally. And then in that case, the interest could apply to you. But basically, if I'm an individual get a notice and they're charging interest, it's to the individual. If it's to the business, it's the business that
Mm.
owes the taxes. And for a lot of people talking about here, they might be small businesses. If it's not a corporation or a
Mhm.
partnership or an S corporation, it's just a Schedule C business, kind of the mom and pop shop, then yeah, that's the same as the individual.
Mm. I see. So same percent of penalty that they will get, whatever your status is, even if
Yep,
you have a big business or just an individual or employee.
in general, yes.
Hmm. Okay, got it. All right, thank you for that answer. So that clears up. It's the same amount, nothing will change. And yes, another question here. This is from Facebook again. Message me in private. This is the question. How long can the IRS provide a timeline if you file an extension?
So, how long can you extend your return for? It's
Mhm.
typically a 6-month extension.
Oh,
So for individuals, returns due April 15th, you can extend it to October 15th.
okay. I guess the follow up question for this is that is this going to cost them more if they will request an extension?
So it shouldn't cost more. The extension is the actual form itself. It says extension to file a tax return. Extension in time to file a tax return. So it's
Mhm.
giving you an extended period of time to file your tax return. Again, it's not an extension for the payment of taxes. If your tax return's due on April 15th, your taxes are due on April 15th. The extension just gives you more time to actually file the return. So on April 15th, you're supposed to estimate how much taxes you think you're going to owe and
Mm.
pay that. When you file the actual return, you may end up with a refund or more due, but you could be charged interest for that 6 months that you extended the time.
I see.
So it could cost you more if you didn't pay enough back on April 15th.
Okay.
That's the short answer.
Well, that's actually a good thing. It's clear and has an example. Good citing. So at least they will understand our viewers. I guess that the conclusion is that always pay it on time to avoid the penalties.
That's it.
Yes. Anyway, checking it right now, I don't see any more question coming up. Anything else that you want to add?
Uh, well, thank you again for everybody who attended today. Again, feel free to contact me or anybody else at Tax Resolution Help Center. We're here to help you. We have a lot of really experienced people. Our goal here is to help educate you so you can do it yourself. We really believe in that, but also give you a resource that says, hey, I don't know what to do about this. I can't deal with it myself. I need somebody else to deal with it for me. We can help you. It gives you an opportunity to meet a few people who've been doing this for a long time, have a lot of information to share, and would love to help you out. That's what we're here for.
Totally agree on that. Well, that covers our question and answer portion and the session for today. I want to thank you also, John, for devoting your time to impart your expertise and provide us actual examples that will really help us gain knowledge on how to do our tax better than last year. All right. Well, thank you very much again for today. Hope you do have a wonderful evening. I know it's already almost 6 p.m., but thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a wonderful day.
Thank you, May.
Okay. Bye bye. All right. And I want to also thank everyone for attending our session for today. And our commitment is to help you reduce your taxes and increase your wealth. We do this with the TriTax method of DIY, do it yourself, DIT, do it together, and DIA, do it all. Three methods, one solution. Reduce your stress from no IRS or state tax debt and happier, healthier life. If you are not yet a member, please join for less than $20 per month. We need your support to continue to offer more of these sessions. Since it is now tax season, we have many sessions to help you do a better job of doing your taxes yourself. And of course, if you want help, we have a team of experts who can do your tax return for you. Please also check our website at taxresolutionhelpcenter.com and please join as a member today for only $19.95 per month. And again, thank you all for attending. See you again next week for our session.